Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming along to listen to our podcast conversation in our fourth and final episode for our Welcome Plus podcasts. This week, we will be talking all about getting your grades at university. So, the academic side of uni, assignments, exams, all that kind of thing. And I'll be joined by our two lovely co-hosts in the podcast, Aaron and Eden, as well as Kieran, who also works on the Plus programme. Don't know if you want to say hi, guys.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
I always do this, just make everyone awkwardly say hello. Thank you all for being here. So just as a reminder, the session today will be recorded just for anyone who isn't able to attend live. The chat and the microphone, the chat and the microphone and camera functions have all been turned off. So if you do have any questions, feel free to bob them in the Q&A box, and we'll answer them throughout, and we'll kind of dive into them a bit deeper during the Q&A segment as well. So yeah, just pop anything in there throughout. Also, just a note to make sure that your name on Zoom is correct, just so that we can just log that you came along. But yeah, without further ado, I think we will get started. Hope you all enjoy. Hello everyone. Hi. Welcome to our Plus programme, Welcome Plus podcast. This week we'll be focusing on the theme of getting your grades at uni. So all things academic side of uni life, managing your studies, all that fun stuff. And I'm joined by my two lovely co-hosts, two of our Plus programme students and our student ambassadors here at Leeds.
I'm Aaron. I'm going to second year of medicine.
I'm Eden, and I'm going to go into my fourth year of global creative industries after just doing a placement at the Union. It's basically, for anyone that doesn't know, that's a bit of a weird title. It's basically just like arts management and behind the scenes of the creative industries.
Oh, that sounds so cool. Two very cool degrees.
Can say that.
Very cool degrees. What's your go-to study spot at Leeds if you had to choose one?
I'm going to say, so this is going to require some like instruction. So Parkinson Building, in the library, just go straight forward. Don't stay in the weird little echoey bit at the bottom. Go straight up, and then there's like a really new bit which is near the gallery in the Parkinson's, like at the top. And there's a kitchen. You can put your stuff in the lockers there. If you want to like, go walk out, you don't have to do the classic thing of just leaving a laptop in the library hoping no one steals it. Nice. There's like a boiling water tap if you want to make tea. It's just such a good place to be for like a cramming session when you got to be there for like 10 hours.
I'm going to be a little bit boring. I just basically live and breathe Worsley Building, which is basically a medical school building. So for me, I'm actually weird. I don't go to a library. I go and book out a tutorial room on level 8 and just sit in a small group room and just... And if I want someone else to join me, I'll let them know I booked it out and friends can come along and get no one. If it's busy, obviously, then my next go-to is health sciences, but if it's not busy, I'll book out a tutorial room.
Nice, no distractions.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You've cracked the system there.
Yeah, I have.
Book out a whole room.
I still have my noise-cancelling earphones. It's really weird because I'm by myself. But...
I love it. Our office is based in Worsley, so I feel like I've slowly kind of just from being at uni and never ever going in that building to now I've discovered so many like you said, the tutor rooms level 8, like there's so much going on. Even health sciences I don't think I'd actually been in throughout my whole time at Leeds, and then I just discovered a whole new library. It's all going on in Worsley. It's
great. You've got two cafes in there as well. 3 cafes. There is one in dentist as well.
Yeah, spoiled for choice.
Isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, thanks guys. And I like that we're both very niche spots as well, like specific. But
But yes, so thinking about your courses then, kind of leading on from that, can you tell us a little bit about your course and just sort of generally how you've found the academic side of uni so far?
Oh, I'll let you
Big
go
question.
first. Yours is quite interesting.
So I think like my year was the first year of our course, so there wasn't really anything to live up to or sort of any advice on the course. So I sort of came in a bit blind, as did lots of people. We were all quite creative and knew that we wanted to pursue something creative, but hadn't really tried things out, and it is quite a broad course that you sort of find your niche on. I think there's a lot of essay writing, which is both good and bad. I think it was a nice surprise to get here and find there was no sort of timed exams or anything. But I think the hardest thing about it being purely coursework is the sort of never knowing when it's finished. So I think that's sort of the hardest thing I've found, sort of like knowing when to stop, when is something that has no time limit finished. So
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I feel like you could then easily get into just an endless loop of like you've finished one piece of coursework, like just sort of constant. Whereas I suppose with exams, you're kind of leading up to something. You've got that kind of, and you pass that point, you're like, okay, breathe. My degree was a bit similar. So I did English, and it was kind of they stopped doing the timed exams quite early on, like my first year, just around the time of COVID, really. And then after that, they never brought them back. So yeah, I can definitely relate. I know what you mean.
Yeah, definitely.
But it sounds like a really interesting course.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's just sort of about like not letting, I don't know, this like imposter syndrome thing win, and just like knowing that if you think you've done all you can, then that's great, and just hand it in. Don't be like sitting there like just waiting for it to get better, and just like hand it in. If you think you've done your best, hand it in. That's my advice.
Solid advice.
Now you see, medicine's a little bit of a mix, especially where I came in. So I came in through the Gateway programme, which is the medicine-specific foundation year. And that's unique in itself. It's a bit different to how the rest of medicine's done. But to talk about particular medicine, we have like the assignment stuff like the essays and things like that, but we also have presentations, and we have the end of year exams as well, which are multiple choice or single best answer questions, something like that. Some fancy name for it anyway. And the exams change all the time, and that's quite hard. So like, because you're having to switch from like doing essays throughout the year, and then some odd presentations here and there, and at the end of the year, you then thrust. I mean, I say you thrust. You do have a mock of these things, but you kind of thrust into these like multiple choice questions. They're really hard. Like I was like, well, you just do multiple choice for medicine. It's like, well, yeah, but it's really hard multiple choice.
I can imagine.
And then we also have like for first year we have like a spot test. So you have to go into like the dissection room and be like, they put like pins into different parts of prosections, which is like prosections like already cut out organs or parts of a human body, and they'd be like, okay, what does this do, or what's posterior to that, or whatever. And again, they're all just different exams, so the way you'd practice for each one is different, and that's a challenge in itself. But I think the unique thing of uni is that we're in it together. I think when you go from like A levels and GCSEs, and as much as you are in it together, it is a case of, you know, if one person gets a grade, the likelihood of you getting that grade may be a bit less. While when you get to uni, it's like we're all in it. You know, everyone could pass the year, or no one could pass the year, or at least in medicine it's the case, and that's quite nice to know in the sense of, well, we actually can work together. We can, you know, and that's what we generally do. We book out the dissection room, a bit like a tutorial room, and we just go in and do a bit of work and whatnot, and then we may go to the library and study together. And it's that's how I kind of got over things, because I was like, otherwise I'm a rabbit in headlights, like, what the hell is all this? And it is a lot of information and a lot of stuff to do, because you're doing all these assignments while also revising for a sit-down timed exam or coupled of timed exams. So, yeah.
By booking out a dissection room, is that what I think it is? Just sort of going into somewhere and like cutting up an organ?
Well, yeah. So we used to be a dissection uni, and I keep calling it dissection room. When actually it's I don't know how they call it, like the anatomy lab, or something like that. But you can do dissections at Leeds, but not in medicine anymore, because if you realise that you spend like an hour, I don't know, 40 minutes that hour is just getting to where you want to go, and then actually you have about 20 minutes for actually focusing on what you want. Because as you can imagine, if you're going to the kidney, there's a lot of stuff to get to the kidney. Do you know what I mean? So but yeah, it is as it sounds. We do we contact the person in charge of the anatomy labs and go, okay, can we book it out at this time for this long? Can we have these pro sections out? Let's if we were looking at the lungs, they can ask for that out, and they'll put it out for us, and we'll go in and let's do that. It's really cool, and they give us textbooks as well to reference. I'm like, okay,
it's a bit different to my study sessions.
quite unique, yeah. But it's really interesting, and
it sounds fascinating. I feel like you medics are just in a different world of your own. But do you know what? Something I feel like I've noticed is like I feel like medical students have got such a, like you were saying about working together and stuff. I feel like there's such a like community kind of like feel in like, just from spending time in Worsley and sort of seeing how kind of social it kind of is as a course. It feels like that anyway. You kind of get that impression.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we was on about it earlier about like the fact that we have our own societies and things like that. It's like we literally live and breathe and do everything together. And I'm sure other courses are quite like that. I'm sure, like, if I'm trying to think of other, like if you're all the way out in law, for example, which is like all the way to the other side of the university, then I mean, I'm sure that's the same as well. Do you know what I mean? But I guess medicine is just, it is so compact, so we just kind of get used to our own company, if you know what I mean. And there's like 250 people. I mean, literally every week I'd find a new person. I'm like, I never knew who you were. Like, I got to the exams, and I was thinking, I saw someone opposite me thinking, I never see you before, but nice to see you.
I love that.
See, there's 20 people in my course, so you don't really get that. Well, in my year anyway.
Wow.
So, yeah, I guess different sort of community with 20 of us, but yeah.
But still quite, I can imagine, in a different sort of way, that's sort of still really nice, because you know, you're more likely to know kind of everyone, or at least you'd have familiar faces more often.
But it's also quite interdisciplinary, so we go to like lots of, it's based in 3 different schools, so it's really nice to sort of network with people that do different courses and meet people that way.
I'm so fascinated by your course. Like, it sounds
it's a bit of a weird one, but it's really good. I'd recommend it. So.
Yeah, sounds really cool. Thanks, guys. That was really good to hear out and sort of hear like how that sort of your experience and study wise. Obviously, it's going to be different when you study different courses, but in so many different ways. Like I think you don't really sort of get that impression, or you can't really understand that until you're sort of at uni and talking to different people.
Yeah.
So yes, that was really interesting. So I think we kind of touched on probably a couple of these terms and things like that just when we've been talking. But I think it's one of the big things that I know I was definitely my experience starting uni was all this new language that you have to wrap your head around. There's so much kind of jargon, I think, like it's, from modules, lectures, seminars, like, labs, things like there's just so many terms that you're going to have to wrap your head on, and some people might be more familiar with them than others, and some things might not be as relevant to you depending on your course. But I guess, what are kind of your tips for wrapping your head around academic jargon, and has there been any standout terms that are kind of you were at first were like, what on earth does that mean, and you kind of had to wrap your head around?
I think for me a massive thing was like wrapping my head around the referencing. Like coming in, like we use 4 different sorts of referencing, and I think coming in, like I didn't even really know what referencing was, like citations and things like that, and it is such a massive part of any humanities or arts degrees is getting your references down, like otherwise you will be there till like 1 a.m. the night before the deadline, like panicking, trying to like go on all these reference generators that are rubbish, by the way. Like you have to do it yourself. So I think a tip I'd have is sort of book in an office hours and just talk like ask your lecturers about referencing, ask their advice on, you know, there's lots of library resources to look at it, but even you can actually go into the library and there's like peer support mentors that can actually like help you with your referencing. And I think for the first month or so, like it's really beneficial to get a bit of help on that.
Definitely. What is referencing and what are office hours?
So referencing is basically like if you've had inspiration or if you're taking a direct quote from an academic or any sort of source, it could be a visual source or anything, you need to cite, which is the word, where it's come from. And there's lots of different referencing styles. There's like Leeds, Harvard, there's MLA, there's loads. Oh my god, like we've had to use like 4 different ones, and they're all similar but also very different to the point where you will get marked down if you do it wrong. And you need to sort of say like who wrote it, where they wrote it, when they wrote it, basically, but in a very tedious way. And then office hours is basically you sort of just, you can either book them online or you can go up to a lecturer or seminar leader and just say like, you know, I'm struggling with this part of my course or this part of my assignment and I'd like a bit of one-to-one help. And honestly, it's a bit of a lifesaver. Like if you're ever sitting in a lecture and you don't know it, like even if you don't know one word, it can sort of ruin the entire lecture. So it's quite good to come up afterwards and be like, you know, I need a bit of help. And they actually, like, they're always happy to help, which is something that I've found amazing. Moving from college to uni, like the lecturers, they always have time, you know, we're paying to be here, and they acknowledge that, and they're always happy to book in those hours, and I think they're so beneficial. And also you're getting your 9 grand's worth, so
absolutely. I feel like office hours is absolutely amazing. It took me so long to realise that
I literally only figured it out in second year and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And you're also building connections with your lecturers, and that's really helpful to have, like, especially, you know, if you are a part of the past programme and you've got external things going on, it's great to be like, you know, have those connections with your lecturers that you can actually reach out personally to them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
See, that's an interesting thing, you see, because I had never referred to that as office hours. I just like, because we have so many different lecturers and so many different tutors, I mean, we have like, for every topic, there'd be like, you know, one topic lead and then like about 6 or 7 lecturers. Wow. So it's like, we just get told like, okay, if you want to contact them, then you contact this person, and then, do you know what I mean? Like, it's every, so there you go. I mean, I'm in my third year, I guess, with the Gateway, and even that I wouldn't know. And it's, and I think particularly mine with medicine, there's so many different new words that you get, not only with the course specifically, but then also having to learn the uni specific ones. I think having that foundation obviously helped me quite a bit, but even then transitioning into like year 1, like I remember when I first got told, you got symposia like this Friday, and I was like, what's a symposia? Like, and it's basically like, it's like a bit like so we call the seminars, we call them, is that right? Seminars, we call them tutorials, where it's like small group stuff. And then like the symposia are like clinical workshops. It's like you'd go in and like it'd be maybe some stuff like dummies laid out, and then we'd go through clinical context, like clinical scenarios almost, which is quite nice. And then like you'll go to placement, and there's a whole lot of jargon to placement as well, and you're like, okay, just a bit simple and streamlined. And then like, not even that, but like, so for example, Minerva, when you first come in, I didn't know what Minerva was. I don't know if you have to use Minerva. I think it was uni-wide. And that's another thing where like, you kind of have to get to grips with how to navigate that and where certain things are on that. I mean, just to kind of explain, that's like a platform used by most university students, and it has everything and anything on there. But yeah, I think one tool I use it's probably more medicine specific, this one, but I just YouTubed it. It sounds really stupid, but like I just YouTubed it, and I found a particular medical student that was from Leeds, and he'd just tell me everything about Leeds. And it was like, oh, this is great. So I knew it may not be like specifically things like, obviously like Minerva didn't mention, but like things to do with the course, like, okay, what symposia, what tutorials, what's happening in placement, things like that, it was great for. And that's just the way I pick things up. I have to, it's funny because like I'd rather go to someone and ask what the answer to something is rather than just Googling it.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a nice way of learning, and it helps, I think, with jargon in the sense of like, just go and ask. Do you know what I mean? I think if you're not sure, there's no harm in, like you said about lecturers and things like that. It's like most staff at university, whether it's a lecturer or whether it's someone from Plus Programme or even other students, most of them that I know, they're really, really helpful, and they'll answer any question you've got. But yeah, YouTube was my kind of part of call.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really good tip as well, because like I remember I started watching some like content creators on YouTube when I was at uni, and like just seeing them, like it really helped with the academic side of things, because like even if they weren't studying my course, I really ended up getting into these like the YouTubers, because they just like explain like how they like manage their time and like things like that, and it's actually so helpful, isn't it? Like
it's so helpful.
It's really useful.
It's great.
And like loads of medical students as well. I feel like loads of medical students do it, so it's a really good tool.
It's brilliant.
But yeah, thanks guys. That was really useful, and hopefully it'll be helpful for people listening, because I think it can be such a minefield. But it's just remembering that there's you have got so many contacts that you sort of at hand to help with making sense of it all, and it's probably not going to make sense at the start, and that's completely okay.
But I think that's what I mean. For me, first year didn't count, so you've got that extra time to try and figure out how to actually do university as a thing. I think another thing is like the website, the Uni of Leeds website is oh my god, like it is very difficult to navigate, and sometimes you do just need to send someone an email that might be stupid, because they might just respond with a link of look at this article on the website, but there's no harm in asking.
Absolutely not. I mean, we have like 2 weeks dedicated at the start of the year just for like introductory weeks. It's just 2 weeks dedicated to like, hit all your modules, this is Minerva, this is student support, this is mitigating circumstances, all them kind of things that you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's like, it's all there. So you kind of, and because we're thrusted straight into it, every year counts for us, it's like we have to get on it straight away. Otherwise... Yeah, a bit scuppered, really.
Definitely, yeah. No, you need to someone needs to break it down to you. It's just, like you say, there's no one's expecting you to know it all, are they?
No, they're not. No.
There's so much help there, but that might be quite a useful thing to mention. Kind of the student support side of things. Maybe could you explain what that looks like, and kind of what mitigating circumstances is?
Yeah, so I think student support while at Leeds is really, really good. I'll touch on mitigating circumstances because I think that's quite a springboard thing. But it's basically like, so obviously the university acknowledges that things aren't always perfect, and we are human, and things go wrong, things crop up, whether it's at family or home or personally, whatever it may be, or financially, and to kind of help combat that, mitigating circumstances allows you to apply for extra support, whether it be an extension, whether it be kind of, if you're doing resits, it could be that you're allowed to sit as a first sit-in, or like medicine, you could even do a whole year again if you've got mitigating circumstances in place. So it's kind of just a form you fill out. So there's like a link, and they'll usually provide that to you in most courses within the first couple of weeks, and you just fill it out. I mean, medicine, I don't know if that's the case for you two, but we can get 7 days without having to provide any.
Yep, that's the same.
That's the same, yeah, 7 days without providing any kind of medical or like official evidence, and if it's more than that, then it has to be evidenced. But they're really, student support are really good at supporting you. The academic team will, if you're unsure as to how do I go about this, what do I need, they'll support you with that. And we get academic personal tutors, and they'll also support you as well in terms of they can provide a statement for you if you need that to kind of help support you mitigating circumstances application, and all sorts. There's loads of things things in place to support you. And I know I mentioned personal tutor. That's something that for us, we get the same one throughout the 5 years. Do you get the same one through 3 years?
We're supposed to, but lots of them go on like sort of study leave and stuff. But they try to have that continuity. So,
yeah, it's really helpful, is that, and I think that's always if you. Like I said, with medicine, there's so many different people. Sometimes it's hard to find that one person that you really get a connection with, especially when there's such a. I mean, I'm sure on a smaller course it's quite close knit, but when there's 250 of you and 20, 30 plus staff, it's quite hard sometimes to have that personal connection with people. So having that one academic personal tutor means you've got someone you can go to and say, okay, actually I'm struggling, and they can then point you to, okay, we've got financial support Leeds, you've got obviously emotional well-being support, you can get counselling for free at Leeds, and then you've also got like I said, the mitigating circumstances for academic support, and there are teams around that as well, so that they're specialists in supporting students, and I think that's the best thing about Leeds. It's and for those I went through the Gateway, which is kind of also Access to Leeds kind of package, and again that's a whole of a support network, and plus programs all part of that as well. And I think there's this almost like big bubble of support that just helps, and I think it gives you so many people you can just kind of lean on and just go, do you know what, I just need a little bit of support, I just need a little bit of this, and even if it is just okay, I'm not sure, they're there, and it's brilliant. So yeah, I'd say also don't be put off by the massive web of support. There is such an access, because there's 30,000 people here, and then there's even the partnership with the union, which is even more support. And I'd say maybe you might hop on a few calls before you find what support actually helps you, and you might get directed into different places, but don't be discouraged, because there's so much out there. You're bound to get the right support that you actually need.
Definitely.
And take it up. Take up the support.
Absolutely. Both such good. I wish I could have heard what you have just said when I was started uni, because I feel like the whole, especially the mitigating circumstances side of things, and really making the most out of your school student support officers and your academic personal tutor, because those people are such key contacts, and I think having that understanding of who they are and what they do and what they're there for, and like you said, Eden, kind of you might have to go sort of to a couple of different people, but that's kind of the sort of beauty of it, in that you will get to where you need to be. It's that sort of signposting that gets you there, and there is someone there for you to talk to no matter what your situation is.
Definitely.
And I think obviously things come up, like you were saying, Aaron, and I think it's really helpful thinking about the academic side of uni to also acknowledge that kind of, that crossover in other areas of your life, and that things are going to come up, and that's completely okay, and kind of knowing what to do in that circumstance, I think is really key. So yeah, that was good. Thank you.
I think one of the things that one of my module leads said to me was, I remember late on in my Gateway year, I mentioned something that was part of my life prior to starting uni, and she was like, why didn't you mention this to me before? And it's and sometimes we get so something that's challenging sometimes is a big part of our life, and we just learn to live with it, and we forget sometimes just to mention it. And I think it doesn't mean that it necessarily means that you'll have to apply for mitigation, or necessarily that you need anything in particular, but if it's mentioned, then it's mentioned, and at least people know, and people can support you. If it is just being there for you, if it is supporting for the disability services or whatever, all the things we just mentioned, it's definitely worth doing. So
absolutely. Yeah, thanks guys. So kind of leading on from that then, like we've kind of said, there's obviously so much support that's on offer. You'll obviously have your resources that are specific to your school or to your faculty, and for anyone who's not sure, so your course will kind of be situated within a school, where there'll be loads of kind of other courses or programs, I guess. But you've also you've got a faculty which kind of houses all of the different schools as well. So that might sound confusing, but essentially you've got your course, and then you've got your school, and then you've got your faculty. So there's so many different resources, and they might be specific to you and what you study, but they also might be university-wide, so the kind of things like we've just mentioned, so things like the library services and skills at library, which offer kind of loads of different academic resources and tools for you to be able to kind of access at any point. And then there's loads and loads of different things, but what I wanted to ask you guys was, what tools have you kind of accessed along the way that you feel like have been the most helpful, and what would you kind of recommend that other people kind of keep their eye out for new students kind of when they're starting?
It's a good question. I mean, it really does depend. I think in terms of the ones that the uni provide, I found the lecture record.
Lecture capture.
It's brilliant. I mean, don't get me wrong, you get lazy with it after a little bit.
Go to your lectures.
Yeah, you should go to your lectures. But it's really, really good in terms of like you can look back. I mean, for me, I find sometimes sitting in a lecture for we have lectures for 2-3 hours at a time, and you're like, it is dense. And it's just a lot of words, a lot of presentation slides at you. And I think taking that time afterwards, it is maybe a little bit laborious and a lot after a long day, but you could do it on a weekend, you can do it whenever suits you, and you can do it on 2 times speed, half speed, 1 times speed, whatever you want, and you could do it while having a brew, having your tea, or whatever you're doing, or while you're at the gym. It's up to you, and I think it's quite it gives that freedom to be able to learn how you want to learn, and I quite like that in terms of the lecture capture. That works quite nice for me.
Yeah, it's a good tip.
Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
Another one for me was the Harvard referencing, Leeds Harvard referencing website. Like literally every type of referencing that you need for Leeds Harvard is all on like a big list, and you can literally I'd look at a document and go, okay, that's clinical guidelines. I go down and go, I'll find good clinical guidelines, click on that, and it shows me exactly how to reference it, exactly what needs to be italics, exactly how to cite it, what if this is missing, that to me.
So
that is such a lifesaver.
I think moving on from that, like, your reading list, you're given sort of, the required reading that you have to do, and like sometimes if you don't do it, you'll be incredibly lost in a seminar. And your lecturers will not be happy. But there's also sort of like a wider reading list, and all those books are actually like available in the library usually. So for me, I think it's been like so helpful, like actually reading what is recommended to you, and also from that, I'm someone that really likes a physical copy of something.
Me too.
Like you can sort of obviously not write on it, but you can like put a little post-it note in it. It's just nice to have a physical copy, and we've got so many books in the library, and because so many people are going online, like they're almost always available. And I'd say, really utilize sort of lending a book from a library. I feel like it's something that you sort of forget exists with everything just going digital. And I think you can loan quite a few at a time for kind of indefinitely. Like I think one book I've had for like a year, and just as long as I give it back before I leave, they don't mind. So you don't actually have to go out and buy everything. Like I remember when I moved in, my dad was like, oh my god, like how are you going to afford all your textbooks and everything? And then I just like looked on the library website and everything's there, and I can just literally, if I want, I could rent it out for my entire course, and have it as sort of my little collection of things to look through that I can just give back at the end. And I think that's something that is really good. And I think people sort of forget that libraries exist sometimes, and you can just go in and like borrow things. So I
think that is quite a big misconception, and especially like I know like a lot of people like medicine think they get to summer and then they come like waiting for an email from the uni being like, here's a reading list, and they never get one. And it's like, and I don't know, obviously it depends on what course you do as to what kind of reading lists you do get, but like I've never had to pick up a textbook in the last year for medicine, and that's like, that sounds really, I mean, fair enough, when I'm in the dissection room or the anatomy room, there's textbooks there to refer to because there's no staff member to be there to help you with that, but I've never had to loan one out like, it's not being a compulsory part of the course. And I think that's such a misconception that, like, I'm going into this big, or into any course, and it's like, I'm going to have to buy all these things, do all this. It's like, my biggest friend at uni is got to be YouTube. I mean, I just got to thank Google for YouTube, because honestly, like, that is a lifesaver, like, because it does depend on how you learn as well. I think, like I said, some people prefer physical copies, some prefer digital, some, in my case, I'm the kind of guy that would listen to podcasts, would watch
definitely.
YouTube. Because
and looking outside the reading list and finding your own things is a whole other thing. Yeah,
exactly. Because it's what works for you. And I think, but yeah, it's a big misconception that you have to buy things, and it's like, no, you don't have to. Or at least in our course, you don't have to anyway.
No, we don't. Thank God.
Completely agree. So, guys, I guess closing things off then. Do you have any final sort of top tips or final kind of comments for new plus programme students when it comes to managing your studies or the academic side of uni?
I think the analogy I remember being told was kind of finding what works for you in terms of studying is a bit like picking a pair of shoes. It really depends. You know, if you went to a shoe shop, they'd ask you, okay, well, what do you want to wear? Like, what's it for? And you'd go, oh, well, you know, it's for running, let's say. And they go, okay, well, what kind of running? Is it long distance, short distance? And as you go further and further down, you get more and more information and find what fits you. And it's exactly the same. You've just got to go shoe shopping, is what I say. And it's that first 2 weeks, that first 6 months, that first year, whatever it is, find what works for you. And I think I can tell you all the generic ways of studying and what works, and time management. Oh yeah, wake up early, go to bed late. It's like, just find what works for you. I think, you know, I'm not great with early mornings, I'm not going to lie. But some people are, do you know what I mean? And that's just the way they are. And I think, and I'm not great with textbooks, but some people are. I prefer videos and things like that, and flashcards. So I think it's just, my best advice is just find what works for you, go to the shoe shop, and yeah, that's my way of advice.
I love that. That's such good advice.
I think moving on from that, like, coming from college to uni, like, you do realise uni is not a one-size-fits-all experience, and all the staff know that, and it's just about kind of tailoring your uni experience to you. And like, you're actually treated like an adult, which is great. And they kind of put the trust in you to tell them what you need. So if there is something external going on, you must communicate that. I think communication is such a massive part of university, and getting the right academic support in place. And really do make use of mitigating circumstances. Like, if something's come up and it's going to really impact your academic ability, it's not like, oh, I've broken all my limbs and I physically can't do something. It's like, if this is really going to hinder your academic ability, that's more than enough grounds to get an extension, to just have that peace of mind that you are doing uni with, you know, at the same rate as everyone else that may not be having external things happening. And it's all just about balancing out the playing fields, and getting your chance to achieve what you can achieve.
Oh, what an amazing note to end on. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks
for having me.
See you later, guys. Thank
See
you
you
for
later.
tuning in.
Thanks, bye.
Hello everyone. I really hope you enjoyed our conversation. I hope you found it helpful. I really enjoyed having it with you both. So thank you so much again for taking part in that. I think we covered some really useful stuff, and you both gave some amazing advice. So yes, I hope you found that helpful. So for the next part and for this last part of the session, we're just going to go into some questions. We've had some come through our Menti that we've been putting out each week for Welcome Plus. So I've pulled some from there just that we can go through. But as I said, if anything does come to mind, or if you do have any questions off the back of the conversation, feel free to bob them in the Q&A box. But yeah, so I've got the lovely Aaron, Eden and Kieran with me on the panel to dive into these questions, and hopefully for the last 15 minutes we can just do a quick kind of run through of them. A lot of them kind of we did touch on, I think, in different ways in the conversation. But yeah, hopefully it'll be useful to answer them. So the first one was, who do I speak to if I need extra time for coursework or exams? Which I know we did touch on in the podcast, but does anyone want to kick us off with this one?
I think the first thing is to kind of obviously you've got the mitigating circumstances form, which can be found via a link on the uni website, which is a bit of a maze, but to be honest, I'd recommend actually going to speak to like the head of your course or the head of that module, and like whether that be through email, because a lot of the time you need extra time because you're not in Leeds for whatever reason, or you're not able to be present. So I'd recommend first of all reaching out and contacting the module leader or the head of your course and kind of giving them a run through, just touching base, because obviously sometimes it can be quite personal, as to why you might need an extension, and then they can send you the link, because I remember the first time I was sort of looking to apply for the mitigating circumstances, like being up for like an hour trying to find it on the uni website. Although I did find out that you can actually just search Uni of Leeds mitigating circumstances and it comes up. So that also does work. But yeah, and then you just fill out sort of why, and you can get up to a week with no evidence, which can be useful because getting evidence in itself can be quite stressful. Yeah, but I also recommend talking to the module leaders and your head of course, maybe, just so they are aware of any difficulties you might be facing, and there might actually be more academic support that they can offer. Yeah, that's the advice I'd give, I think.
Thank you, Ian. That's so helpful. Does anyone else have any other comments before we move on to the next one?
I just say you've also got your academic personal tutor as well. That's a good one. And I think like you said, it's more about they're like in the know as to what's going on, especially if it is more than the 7 days, or something that perhaps isn't just a spontaneous illness or whatever it may be, that could maybe have a longer effect, and go across multiple module assignments. That way, it goes back to that thing I mentioned in the podcast about, well, even if it's nothing, it's worth mentioning, and that way, if it ever comes up a cropper later down the line, people know what's happening, and then it kind of just adds an extra feather to the bow as such, and helps you more than anything, which is the most important thing with mitigating circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I think as well, just to add to that, because obviously, as Eden was saying, like the university website can be a little bit of a maze, and naturally once you start getting into your studies and university life, like all this signposting might slip from your mind. So if at any point you are needing those adjustments and you don't know where to look or you don't know who to ask, you can just email the Plus programme and we can point you in those directions as well. Because yeah, it could very easily fall out of your head once you start diving into your course, and those tiny little details of who to speak to and where to go to are usually the last thing you're thinking about when personal circumstances crop up. And yeah, that's what the Plus programme team's there to do as well. So we can point you in the right direction if you need that extra support.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kieran. Cool. So moving on to our next question then. So someone has asked, will I have different lectures and classmates in my classes, or will it be the same group? Anyone has any initial thoughts on this one?
I guess it depends on the size of the course. But like obviously, in our year alone, we had over 250 people, and just feasibly, you can't. I mean, there's not enough space in a lecture theatre for 250 of us, never mind a tutorial room. So unfortunately, we do change around, and I've like I said before in the podcast, it's like there's people I still didn't know towards the end of my year, and that's just an inevitable fact. It's not that if it's not like I'm not sociable or anyone's not sociable. It's just a case of when the course is so big, naturally they can't. But in medicine, I found they actually did the opposite. So they would actively put you in groups of people you didn't know, and was in that many different groups. I mean, I lose track of the amount of groups we were in, and they would force sometimes like you'd be in groups of four that you had no choice in. Um, Compared to lectures. I mean, obviously different sizes. Also, like a lecture would be about half the year, so like 100 of us, compared to like tutorials of 10 to 15, and then placement groups will be groups of 4, 5, all of which will be different groups of different classmates. Now, that said, I did find obviously most with lectures, I'd just sit with people that I'd made friends with in tutorial groups. So although not everyone in the lecture theatre obviously was in my tutorial group, I'd find it allowed me. There are set tutorial groups, like one of my modules is the same group throughout the year. So I made friends with them, and they would be the friends that I'd then go and sit next to in lectures. So even though, yes, some modules I would change groups periodically, and I wouldn't know everyone, you do find people and you do make them clicks, and it's hard because you're not used to it. But once you do find the people that you click with and you find friends with, it makes life a little bit better, even when things do change, which unfortunately medicine they often do. So, yeah.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, I think like university, especially Leeds, is quite innovative in that everything's becoming quite modular, which means there's a lot of choice within degrees. Like with my degree, like most of my modules, we've got 2 core modules and then 4 actually, including a discovery module, which is basically like there's a massive list at the start of the year with thousands, hundreds of subjects you could do. I think we touched on it in the podcast. And I think because of the modular nature of so many of the courses in the university, sometimes you're with completely different people for every single lecture. But I think that's actually to your advantage because you're meeting new people, you're meeting new lecturers that have specialties and different things, which I know there's the question coming up about the difference between college and sixth form and university. Like your lecturers are they sort of have their speciality. So you'll meet, even if you're doing quite a not broad subject, there'll be very don't know how to explain this. There'll be lecturers that have their specialisms. So that's actually for the best rather than just having one person to teach, I don't know, sociology. You'll have different people that know more about each part of your subject to give you more information, which is great.
Absolutely. Fab. I think that leads us on quite nicely to the next question then, the one you mentioned, Eden. So someone's asked, what's the difference between studying at university versus studying at college? Which I feel like is quite a big, bulky question. But does anyone have any thoughts on that? Any immediate thoughts?
I think I would say like the biggest difference is that it's a lot more individualized in every respect. Like you're often leading your own study, you're often studying alone. Obviously, that can differ from discipline to discipline. But when I was an English literature student at Leeds, a lot of the study was, self-directed. The contact time was quite minimal. so that's something that you certainly have to get used to when you're probably used to being in a set class and having lots of face-to-face contact time, and also having like a syllabus directed towards you. Like, you obviously still have a syllabus at the university and you have a reading list, but you're not necessarily told how quickly to go through it, or how to navigate through it. That choice is often left to you as a student. I think also it's more individualized in the sense of you get to follow your interests a lot more than you might have done at A level or college level, which can actually be quite a freeing thing. You do often get to study the things that really do matter to you, and as Eden was saying, like, it is quite modular, and like another benefit of that is that you can try out lots of different things, and it doesn't necessarily have to last for your entire university journey. You can do something in the first term of first year just to try it out, and if it doesn't work, you can try something else. So yeah, with my English Lit course, I ended up studying so many different genres of literature that I never would have come across otherwise, and it was purely just out of interest. But that being said, it can differ so much from like course to course, so there's no real set rule. I think it's just being prepared to lead your own learning, and to know when to reach out and ask for help, and when to adapt based on the content that you're given.
I would say as well on that, we if that sort of side of things, time management, and I guess just getting to grips with university life is like something that you're a bit unsure of or apprehensive about. We do talk quite a lot about that in one of the last podcasts that we did. Maybe it's the third episode, I want to say. I think it was last week's. And all the recordings will be accessible to you, and we'll be able to circulate them. They'll be on our SharePoint. So if you do want to listen back to that, feel free. I would recommend. But yeah, thanks, Kim.
From my perspective, like, a massive thing is that, like, this time university life, like, there's not a massive divide between your lectures and going home. Like, you live here, you are part of this university community, and I'd say, yeah, trying to figure out how to differentiate going to a lecture and getting your head down, and then like making friends, interacting in societies, and then just having time to relax and be by yourself and having some alone time. You don't always have to be doing something. Prioritize your studies. that's a good one. But also prioritize yourself and try and get to know what you need and how you can sort of decompress, is something that's, I think, definitely good for university.
Amazing. Thank you, Eden. So our final question was quite a straightforward one, but also I feel like the answer is, as is with a lot of questions like this, is very much it does depend. But I wonder if anyone has any thoughts on this one. Someone asked, are lectures in person? I know we spoke a little bit about how much things do differ depending on your course. Does anyone kind of want to share any thoughts on this one?
It's a combination, and like you said, you can't hit on the head. Really, it really does depend on what course you're studying. I know with ours, it's a combination. So every lecture, every lecture more or less is both. So it's the usual always in our case be in person. There's always an option, but not everybody can attend in person. So unfortunately, a percentage of the class has to go online. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to come into university. You can take that lecture from anywhere, as long as obviously you might still be off anyway. So, and so your cameras. So as long as you've got Wi-Fi or data, you can access it from anywhere. I've done it where I've come in because I commute. I've come into Leeds and had it on, listening to it as I'm coming into Leeds. So it just depends really. And the swings and roundabouts to that, as I'm sure you can imagine. But yeah, every lecture, unless stipulated for a reason, like lecture can't make it or something like that, in which case they may make a recording for you and just put that up on the lecture capture software. Then, but in our case, every lecture's in person for those that the lecture theatre can accommodate for.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the year. Like when I started, I think it was quite a 50-50 split. Whereas going into my final year now, I have everything in person. But I think lecture capture is something we spoke about in the podcast. Like, for any reason, if you're not able to attend, that will be your best friend. And for me, as long as it's a lecture and not sort of like a seminar or a workshop or any of those other things that your degree might have, the lectures are always recorded with lecture capture that you can then access on Minerva, which is the university sort of online system.
Absolutely. Fab. Thank you all. That kind of brings our Q&A to a close then, I think. I hope everybody's found that useful. I hope there were some useful takeaways in what we spoke about. I've popped some links on screen kind of relating to some of the conversations we had, and some things that might be useful kind of off the back of what we spoke about. I have popped a QR code as well on the screen to our mentee if you do have any more questions after this session. I definitely recommend having a look at our Padlet, the Get Your Grades Padlet. There's lots of useful bits in there to have a look at. So definitely take a look. There's also some other things like a jargon buster from the Leeds Business School that I found that's really, really useful. Support and wellbeing at Leeds. There's quite a lot in there about mitigating circumstances and kind of getting support if you are struggling at any point through your degree. And Space Finder as well, which is quite a useful tool to find study spots and whatnot on campus. So we can circulate the slides after today so that you've got them and so that you can take a look at those links. But that is everything. And that is our last episode of the podcast. So thank you so much for anyone that's came along. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope if you've came along to any of our Welcome Plus events, I hope you've enjoyed them. And if you come into the Welcome event on Friday, we look forward to seeing you there. But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you to the panel. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.